Guys, it's Luke here, SimBoxx. Welcome along to the SimBoxx Presents Let's Talk Boxing podcast. It's episode 2 of the recently relaunched podcast. So thanks for being with us and listening and viewing and consuming our content. Joined again by my new co-host, Jamie Ryan. Jamie, the podcast last week was very well received. It went down really well, had some really good feedback. So yeah, you're back again. Maybe it's going to become a permanent fixture.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, enjoyed it last week, and got some good feedback as well from people that had seen that I was on it, and yeah, hopefully it does become a regular thing, mate. A regular thing, and a staple of the podcast community.
That's the one. And with the boxing world, we're forever laughing and joking about that. It's like buses sometimes that you wait for one and three come along at once. And last week we relaunched a podcast on the back of Josh Taylor against Esso Eckerman, but without something to look forward to. It was a couple of US shows that went down this weekend with Caleb Plant being upset and Jamal Charlo making a successful return to the ring. But this week we look forward and we look forward to three shows in the UK. I think there's three, four major shows across the pond and around the world in Japan. And then there's also smaller shows. I can't believe the lineup this weekend. And uh, for the listeners, the viewers, we're going to be focusing on the three main events of the UK shows. We've got Boxer, we've got Queensbury, and we've got Wasserman. So yeah, a lot to get into. But as I say, it's like waiting for buses. You wait for one and three come along at once.
Yeah, yeah, to the point where it's like I'm gonna have to juggle. I'm gonna have to have two TVs on, especially on the Saturday night. Anyway, I'm gonna have to have two TV screens, which obviously it's good when you've got free British shows on. But then sometimes when they do clash, it's like, oh, I want, because obviously you're probably saying you want to watch every fight on each card, and it can be a bit tricky. But it's good that we've got so many shows on, and British boxing's booming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's quite interesting that we we seen the link up with Queensbury and Matchroom, and then obviously now they're both on the same platform. But with Boxer and Sky Sports still there, there's still that the competition for dates and time slots. So there's still going to be clashes. But with it being Fabio Wardley at Ipswich in a big heavyweight fight, and then Callum Simpson at Barnsley at the football ground, I think it's a bit of a gamble. I know that Barnsley and Ipswich are a good few miles away from each other, but I'd like to think that if you're going to invest in a stadium show for a fighter, that you'd want as many eyeballs on it as you can, and not split between two broadcasters as we've got at this weekend. And maybe it's inevitable, but from a weekend prior that we didn't have anything on, the football season's finished. You maybe question, could there have been a bit more logic? We don't know the ins and outs of the logistics of making a stadium fight, but yeah, it's slightly frustrating still
Yeah.
that we're getting these clashes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then I think maybe the football finished last weekend, didn't it? So maybe it might have had something to do with why they couldn't get one of the shows. We don't know, but it would have been good to have one of them shows on last weekend with us not having any British shows to look forward to. And you kind of think, you do obviously. I want to say the promoter's missing a trick, but they're the best at what they do. And I'm just sat here in my room trying to say, oh, you've got it better than us. But I'm under the impression that it would be good to have these, like you said, knowing there was no boxing on last week and trying to organise something for them, because I would think, like you said, eyeballs. You're not splitting eyeballs then between two fighters, because the two fights that are happening, Simpson and Wardley, they're both on the up.
Yeah.
And they're building them profiles to try and get them into world title recognition and world renowned names. Um, and now you've got to split that. You've got to split that audience. Whereas eyes might have wanted to watch Callum Simpson, might not have maybe followed him too much, but they're more into the heavyweight scene. So, we're going to watch the Fabio Wardley, and then you're going to have the diehard Yorkshire people are like, no, we're going to watch our boy Callum, and then not give the recognition to Fabio Wardley. So, but I'll just two screen it. I'll sort it with two screens.
Absolutely, and I think that's the majority of boxing fans like ourselves will do. I remember a few years back in December, we had Dillian White and Derek Chisora rematching on the same night as Carl Frampton against Josh Warrington. And I struggled after when we done the setup and we had two TVs, like one on top and one underneath. I think when you think of two screens, the idea is actually better than the actual delivery of it.
Yeah,
But
oh yeah,
you don't know what to think to it.
massively,
It's
mate.
still frustrating. Maybe better than channel hopping,
It's,
but it's still frustrating.
yeah, yeah. You sort of don't know where to look. Like, there's actually, you like that. Up
Yeah,
and
because if I
down, up and
remember
down,
correctly,
up and down.
if I remember correctly, We had it was a flying start from Josh Warrington, wasn't it, with Carl Frampton? He really come out the traps fast and he charged
Yeah,
Carl Frampton and he really put a bit of a beating on him at the start of that fight and obviously went on to win convincingly. And you're trying to watch the other fight and you're like, if it was maybe Carl Frampton jumping on Josh Warrington, because I said it right, Carl Frampton went into that fight with as a right favourite and a strong favourite, but
yeah.
someone like Josh Warrington's going mad here, and he's kind of
Yeah, yeah. And like
trying
you said,
to
it
take it
does
off
take
him.
it away. And we'll probably have that on Saturday night. Whoever's watching both fights at the same time, you're probably gonna have that, and it's a bit of a shame because you're probably gonna miss something exciting in one of the fights. But it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. We've just got to sit back and try and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not complain too much because we might end up with another barren period. But let's start at Portman Road, the home of Ipswich Town. They didn't have too much to cheer about by way of the football. They didn't have a great season, relegated from the Premier League. But Fabio Wardley, undefeated heavyweight, highly ranked with the WBA, former British champion. I think he held the English and maybe even the Commonwealth as well. I'm not too sure. But all action Fabio Wardley. And he takes on late replacement Justis Huni, undefeated himself, highly ranked with the WBO. Late replacement coming in for Jarrell Miller. Now, with that Jarrell Miller fight, and Jarrell Miller, we won't spend too much time talking about him. One, because he's a drug cheat, and two, he's not actually in the fight. But I was really impressed that they got somebody in of the ilk of Justice Huni,
Yeah,
Fabio to fight. It's a stadium fight, so they're not. With all due respect, they're not going to bring in like a Marius Vac or somebody like that. With all due respect to Marius Vac, but at this point of his career, it was never going to be someone like him. They went out and they've got a different opponent to Jarrell Miller. Some might say more difficult, but it's got to be more difficult at short notice anyway, isn't it, Jamie? If he's planning
yeah, of course.
the style of Jarrell Miller, which is only really the way Jarrell Miller fights at heavyweight, to then go in against a bit more of a boxer and a seasoned amateur like Justice Sonny. So yeah, fair props to
Yeah,
both men and both promoters for backing them and in this fight. So you excited for this one, Jamie?
I am. I'm excited. I'm more excited now that he's fighting Justice Hunter than when he was fighting Jarrell Miller. And it's no disrespect to Jarrell Miller, but I think it was set up. That fight was set for Fabio Wardley to then go on to the next stage because I think he would have beat Jarrell Miller because he's a bit of a plodder, isn't he, Jarrell Miller? He's not the fastest, and Wardley's a very fast and very sharp. And I think he would have just been hitting him all night. Might not have got him out of there, but I think he would have won quite a wide unanimous decision. And it was a very smart move for them to make by matching him with Jarrell Miller, being a big name. Um, Going on to beat him, and he's in the mix then, and then they'll be able to go right. We know he can fight at world level, but I think this is a tougher fight for him. I think Justice is massively underrated at times. Very seasoned boxer, like you said, in the amateurs, and he moves well as well. One of the things boxing is being able to move well, and he's good on his feet and he moves really well himself. But I'm still going to back Wardley to win it though. I think Wardley's still got enough to win it. I know he's not got the stellar amateur background, but you can actually see with him how massively he improves fight on. With each fight, like his technical ability and his understanding of boxing, his boxing IQ is getting better and better, and he's sort of learning on the road, isn't he? As opposed to your likes of your Justice. Um, but it's a weird one really because with the amateur pedigree that he's got, you'd go, yeah, he should beat Fabio Wardley, but then you would say that about Fraser Clark,
Yeah. Well, I think if,
and
if there's a
by
heavyweight division where the amateur pedigree might go out the window more than most, is maybe at heavyweight, where everybody's, as we always say, it's an old boxing cliche, you got a puncher's chance. And if, in the heavyweight, if you're built like Fabio Wardley, if you move like Fabio Wardley, as athletic as he is, you've got a massive
yeah.
puncher's chance, and maybe that amateur pedigree doesn't stand for as much. In the heavyweight division, people might think I'm wrong, you might agree, I don't know, but maybe that's the one division where it doesn't stand out as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, I sort of tend to agree because you look at like Odd Garrison, prime example of not being able to transition into the pro game. It's total amateur boxing and professional boxing. It's two totally different sports. Even though it's the same sport, it's totally different, massively different. The way you train, the way you learn to ride shot. Obviously, you're fighting over 12 rounds as opposed to three. In the free, it's all fast, 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 in and out, in and out. Whereas it's not like that in the pro game. And I think you're right in the heavyweight division. Being a stellar amateur doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go on and win things because everyone's got a puncher's chance. And another fighter, David Price, got that bronze medal. Everyone, and at one point, everyone was like, he's better than Fiore. Do you know? And he had and he had the better amateur pedigree. Um, but yeah, they hit big. They're heavy hitters, and you know, one shot can change anything in the heavyweight division. So it's interesting. I'm really looking forward, and I'm glad that they threw Justice in. I'm really glad that they threw him in because that I think we'll know where Wardley's at now. I think that will give us a really good inkling on is Wardley, is he overachieving, or is he actually like, yeah, he can go on to fight for the world title.
Well, you've touched on a couple of things there that I was going to bring up. One, is he overachieving? Because if you was to read on paper, not never mind the eye test of watching how good he is, and think, right, this guy had white collar fights, and then he turned over. Um, and I can't remember the guy he fought, but it was in the bubble in Matchroom HQ during the pandemic, and he was an Olympic. Not an Olympic, sorry, he boxed at the Commonwealth. He might even medaled at the Commonwealth as well, the guy that Fabio was fighting. And I remember even back then, everyone was in the build-up going, "Oh, this is a test for Fabio," because of the lack of amateur pedigree that he had. And even up until Fraser Clark, the two fights with Fraser Clark and David Adelaide, every time he stepped up to that level, he's blowing people away. It's an incredible journey, and I think it's one of those with Fabio where the more we question, is he good enough or is he, met his match? He's either, he's one of those. He's like a juggernaut, and when it does come to an end, inevitably it should come to an end. There's not many undefeated boxers that retire undefeated like Calzaghe or Mayweather. That eventually, the wheels will come off, and you just know it's going to be spectacular either way because he's not going down without a fight. He's got a big heart, he's got a big set of cojones on him, and that's what I find so fascinating is that we keep thinking, right, this is going to meet his match, this is going to meet his match, and he's surpassing each and every test. That Fraser Clark knockout in the rematch, well, first of all, the first fight, where it was a draw, one of the best heavyweight fights you could hope to see. Any weight
Yeah,
division, actually, one of the best fights you could hope to see. And then to be so conclusive in what was considered a 50-50 fight with Fraser Clark in the rematch, that was a scary knockout, man. And Fabio
that's
is,
scary. That
it really was, wasn't it? And he's such a fascinating character as well because he's so softly spoken, so well spoken, so intelligent. And he gets in there and he fights like he's got nothing to
he's
lose.
animal. Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
he's come from the bottom, like this is all or nothing. And I find it fascinating that he's got that characteristic to him. It's very easy
yeah.
to it's not easy, I should say, to fabricate that you either got it or you haven't, and he's certainly got it. So yeah, I think it's interesting that we maybe Justice Huni could be the guy that finds him out. He might not be, but I sure think that as far as Fabio Wardley's going to go, it's going to be pure entertainment along the way.
Oh yeah, massively all out action brings it all the time. And like you said, if he does get beat, he's going to get beat spectacular because and that's not like because he's terrible. That's because he's going to be going all out, guns blazing. If he goes down, he's going down with a fight. So it will be an interesting. If he did lose, it'd be entertaining either way. But I'm massively looking forward to it, and I think the journey he's gone on is probably why he's got that inside him. Because he just gets written off all the time. And you know that must play a part in him going, "Oh, I'll show you. Like, I will show you. Yeah, I'm not a amateur background. I've not got this experience, but I work hard and I train hard, and I listen to everything and I take on board of what's said. And I'm going to go out there and put a show on. And it's come to the point where I don't even want to bet. I'm not going to bet against him now. I'm not. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna what will be because if you were going to any other division, you wouldn't really be like, wow, a white collar boxer turning over pro. Like a lot of people would be like, nah, you've not got the experience for it. It's dangerous. But he's just like mad. It's mad that he's not got that background or experience, and he's just like you said, blowing people away that he on paper shouldn't be blowing them away.
So just to go back to, we was bigging this fight up as being such a fantastic replacement fight for Jarrell Miller to save a stadium show. A different point of view that I wanted to put across was with Justice Huni. What is he? 12-0, 7 knockouts. He's wobbled a few times against Kevin Lorena. Some people are questioning, has he got the power to make it, to the very top levels of the heavyweight division. We applaud him and his promoter for taking this fight at short notice. I think they have 4 or 5 weeks or something. But then on the flip side,
Yeah.
is it reckless from his promoter to put him in it? If you're building up this guy to be, a championship material, and now you're jumping up levels, is it maybe risk reward the potential of becoming the interim WBA, world champion, when you've already got the number one position with the WBO.
Mm.
He was rumoured to be a possible opponent of Moses Atalma if they'd done a matchroom versus Queensbury, 5 versus 5. With all due respect, we spoke last week glowingly about how good Moses Atalma is, but Fabio Wardley's achieved a lot more. He's a lot further down the line than Moses Atalma. So to kind of jump up the levels the way he is the risk, the reward there? Are they thinking maybe he's not
I
that kind of
think
guy?
for for Justice, I think it's more reward than risk for him. Only because he's he's not a massive name in the stable. He's not like where the eyes are going to see, and I think it's a risk in the sense of like he's undefeated, someone's always got to go, and obviously a lot of not hardcore boxing fans. As soon as you lose, you're like, oh, I'm not interested, and all that. But he also needs the eyeballs on him. And even if he goes out and he puts on, they go to war and he loses, it's only going to help him get the eyes over this side of the world. Because I think that's probably what he's lacking at the moment is he's not massively promoted outside really of like the Oceania region.
Yep.
Obviously we know about him, but he's not that well touted. So it's a risk in the sense of he could lose his all and drop down the rankings that he's worked hard for, but it could be if he does lose, it could still be rewardful in the sense of that he can get more fans and if it's a close fight or if he goes on to win, Eddie's going to be laughing. Eddie's going to be laughing because he's going to like right promoter, boom, I know what to do here now.
Well, again, I'm only playing devil's advocate here because I'm a big fan of jumping in at last minute and saving shows, and it shows the metal that these guys have. But by that logic, then, if it's going to do all that for Justice Huni in winning or losing, why would Queensbury have not kept it in house and put Moses Atalma in with Fabio Wardley? He was only boxing on the Scotland show a couple of weeks back. They knew that they needed a replacement for Jarrell Miller before he fought in Scotland, so he's up there in the higher rankings of the WBO. I think he's number three or number two behind Justis Huni. He was willing to put him in with Justis Huni, so they think he beats Justis Huni, which then would make it a better fight for Fabio Wardley. From a promoter, Frank doesn't want to have a losing
Yeah.
fighter, I guess, but if it's good for Huni, is it not good for Moses Atalma? Again, I'm just playing devil's
Didn't
advocate.
even. Yeah, no, you know what? I didn't even look at it like that. To be fair, Luke, I didn't even have a look at it at that point. I think I would like to see Fabio Wardley fight Moses, but I think that won't happen due to boxing politics. I think, especially even though they're in the same with Queensbury, and you think, yeah, get it on. But I think Frank's looking at I've got two potential world heavyweights at champions in my stable here. I'll rather build them up so that when they've both got a title, I can have a mega show in the UK, a big stadium fight further down the line. I would rather see it now, but from the boxing politics promoter point of view, I think probably that's why they've not gone down the Moses route and gone for the Honey. Because I think either of them lose at this stage, Wardley and Moses, where they're both at, it will massively derail one of the careers in terms of where they're currently at, ranking wise.
Absolutely. So we'll just close off. You've alluded to it already, but before we move on to the other main events, and we know each of these cards have got solid undercards. Time constraints means that we can't go into it too much, but there's solid undercards on all the three shows that we're going to talk about. But let's close out the Portman Row show from Queensbury. Fabio Wardley undefeated against Justis Huni undefeated. I'll throw it over to you first, Jamie. You've alluded to your prediction already, but yeah, around 30 seconds. Give us your prediction for Fabio Wardley, Justis Huni.
Um, I'm going to go for Fabio Wardley, late stoppage. I'm going to go late stoppage towards the back end of the fight.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree. I think this is Fabio Wardley's time. Every time he steps up a level, he shows that he belongs there, and I think this could be quite similar to the Nathan Gorman fight where he was posed some problems by Nathan Gorman because Nathan Gorman can box. He's not the biggest puncher,
Yeah.
but he can box, and you could say that about Justice Huni. I'm not comparing Huni and Gorman necessarily, but I think Justice Huni's got the boxing ability to maybe even be ahead after 3, 4, 5 rounds, but. Fabio Wardley borrowed Deontay's wildest phrase of "You've got to be perfect for 12 rounds. I've only got to be perfect for 1 second." I think that'll be the case, and I think when he hits him, he'll stay hit, and I think he gets him out of there inside 6 rounds. I think it'll be that quick that when Fabio realizes he's getting to him, he's wearing him down, and he won't be bothered about being behind on the cards. He gets to him, he hits him, and Fabio whacks like a truck. So yeah, Fabio Wardley inside 6 rounds for me. So we move on to the other stadium show on the same night, Saturday, and Callum Simpson, undefeated, super middleweight. I don't know if you can still call him a prospect, but he's certainly trying to get up to that world title level, and he stops at European level. He fights for that super middleweight EBU European title against the undefeated Ivan Zucco. He's 21 and 0, 18 and 0. Callum Simpson, he's been through a lot out of the ring, family tragedies, and he's overcome them. And if you watch before the Steed Woodall fight, I'm not sure if you watched that fight, Jamie, but that montage he put on when he tragically lost his sister, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I watched that with my brother and my eldest son, and there was close to being a few tears there. So Callum Simpson, I think he holds a place in people's hearts for what he's overcome, but also he's a fucking good fighter, and he goes in there and
Yeah.
maybe the toughest fight of his career. He's beat Zach Kelly and other guys around domestic level, but he's stepping up here against an undefeated, seasoned operator in Ivan Zucco. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. He's got a strong following there in Barnsley, and it reminds me of the days of Ricky Hatton and Josh Warrington and Andy Crawler for a time where, they're coming through and they're really building that following, that die-hard following. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, it should be. Yeah, and that it should be a test for Callum Simpson. It should be a test. But he's looked fantastic in every fight. I think he should probably win this quite easily. I probably shouldn't say quite easily. I'll come back to bite me that. But I think he's got it nailed on to win this one. And I like the fact that he's gone down the traditional route, picked up all the British, the Commonwealth, the European. Um, because I think when you watch him, like he's not a prospect anymore, but I don't think he's quite at world level. So the road they're taking him down, I think it's the right road, and I think just gradually getting him better and getting him better. I think that's the right thing they're doing with him. I think this is a fight that he should win on paper. He should win, which is only going to then set up. I think probably set up another bigger, probably a bigger domestic fight maybe after this, but. It puts him in that European bracket now. Starting to fight, world fighters from different areas that are going to come and trouble him. But yeah, it's another stadium fight, exciting, and like you said, he's been through a lot, and I think going through that and overcoming it and still being the person that he is going to be a big help to him. When the going gets tough, do you know what I mean? Because like he's already been through the hell and come out fine. So I think that will in a mental way would actually help him when the going does get tough. But I mean it's an interesting one. I don't know too much about the opponent as well, so I don't want to be too disrespectful to his opponent. In that regard, by saying he should probably easily win,
Well, to
but
be honest, Jamie, just to pick up on that there, one of the things that I noted down, so I had a look at Ivan Zucco, I watched a couple of clips on him online, and he doesn't seem the biggest puncher, but then I was looking at his record, and of his last four opponents, the combined record was 69 wins, 50 losses, and two draws. And his best win, that or most recognizable name on his record that I could see was Jermaine Brown, who boxed at domestic level, maybe English title level here in the UK, and Zuko beat him a unanimous decision. So as much as he's got 18 knockouts from 21 wins, if your last four opponents record is
yeah,
69 wins, 50 losses, two draws, kind of shows you on a level that he's been meant to beat the people that he's been fighting. Again, with all due respect,
yeah, that's it.
guys are still getting there.
They do. You do get your padded records, don't you? As they're bringing you up. So I think it
But at the
doesn't
same
really give us a
time,
good
yeah,
gauge of.
when they come into this kind of fight, maybe do have that pedigree record, but maybe they've been waiting for this opportunity to shine. You could say that about Justis Huni before as well, like the record that he's got
Yeah,
might not scream name after name, but him, Ivan Zucco, this is their time to shine. Maybe they've not been able to show how good they are because they've not fought them opponents. So yeah, I mean it with all due respect, but it's just going along with your words there of Callum Simpson should win and should win well. So yeah, I'd sort of make a point of that.
no, fair enough. But yeah, I'm going to back Callum Simpson to win. Like I said, I don't want to disrespect his opponent, but like you said, that them kind of records, and then you're jumping into fight. Now you're fighting an 18-0 fighter who's fighting and beating people with a strong winning record themselves. He's beating people that aren't going out and Zach Chelly, beating Steve Woodall. These aren't fighters that are they're laughing three, four fights have all been people with a bigger losing record than a win record. So I think in terms of like the pedigree, Callum Simpson's probably got that more than this Ivan. But like you alluded to, this is his time to shine. So we don't know. He might turn up and he might be mustard, might be, because some fighters fight to the level that they're fighting as well. Sometimes if you know you're better than the opponent, go through the motions. You don't change, go through the gears. It's just carry on. And I think Fury was a bit like that for a long time. He would fight some people, and you think, like, fucking, how can he go and win a world title on that performance? And then he gets in there, and it's like, fucking, Jesus, where have you pulled that from? So that might happen. That might happen. I think the problem is we don't know too much about his opponent, and I don't want to be too disrespectful to him and be all like, yeah, Callum. But usually in these situations, it tends to favour, the known fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned earlier on about he's not quite at world level yet. I think there's certain divisions in boxing where you might be able to fast track somebody into the world title scene. Maybe cruiserweight doesn't seem the most stacked division, where you get somebody like a Vidal Riley or Aloys Jr. that fought on the Queensberry show in Scotland. Chev Clark before he lost to Vidal Riley. These kind of guys seem on a fast track into that world title picture because it's not as in depth as some of the other divisions. Super middleweight's different. That
Yeah,
gap
too
from
too big,
European
too
level,
big.
yeah, from European level to world level is a big gap. Obviously, we've got Canelo
Big.
undisputed, and David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, even though he's lost, Charlo, these other names that I'm not naming off the top of my head, but it's a stacked division, and there'd be nothing wrong with a Callum Simpson at 27-28 winning this European title if he does on Saturday, and then making a few defenses, and then maybe looking at fringe world level opponents because he's still growing. He's 28, he's still growing in terms of his boxing experience, his boxing ability. So, yeah, I certainly think that there's no rush for him to jump up for the levels. One guy that I would be interested to see him in with, if he does get that victory, we'll move on to our predictions in a couple of minutes. But on the undercard, Mark Jeffers, another undefeated super middleweight, he's beat Zach Shelley as well. And I think Mark
Yeah,
Jeffers against Callum Simpson, they're both managed by Kevin Marie as well. And I just think that's got the makings of a proper domestic classic rivalry. They could fight and fight again and whatnot
yeah,
when they both maybe move into the world title picture because they're young enough to rebuild when one of them does lose. Could they do it again for a world title? So I think that's certainly one that I'd have my eye on, and fingers crossed it could happen because I think Mark Jeffers has a bit of a bee in his bonnet when it comes to Callum Simpson because even though they're under the same management, I think maybe Callum's a bit more marketable, shall we say? He sells more.
yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, bang on
He's
there.
getting the opportunities that Mark feels he deserves because he's been screaming for this European title shot and it weren't for
Yeah, and
Vincent.
the records are quite similar, and they've fought a couple of the same opponents and beat them as well. So yeah, I can understand why Mark's probably got to be in his bonnet. But I think, unfortunately for Mark, Callum Simpson is just more marketable at this moment in time. But that could all change if they go and have a domestic dust up. And it's one of them ones. Do you know what we mentioned before, Wardley and Atoma? It could be if they fought now, it could be detrimental to one of their careers. But that's again talking about stacked divisions. Heavyweight division's not quite as stacked as a super middle. So them two fighting now, they could afford to one of them to lose at this stage because it's so stacked. They've got plenty, and they're still young. They've got plenty of time to come back and fight again. And they probably like you said, this could turn into a good little rivalry. I think in terms of ability, they're quite close, quite similar. Mark probably doesn't get the enough good comparisons against Simpson. I don't think in the community because he's not the headline on any shows. Whereas I think when you really break them both down, quite similar, and I think it would be a bit of a chess match with the first match that they have. I think it might be a bit boring to start with, but it would develop over time, and it could be a good little rivalry. I rate Mark Jeffers, I rate him, and it would be good to see him getting a bit more promotion himself.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to that potential fight if they're both victorious on Saturday. But let's close out the Oakwell show with our predictions, and I'll go first this time. And I believe Callum Simpson will get the win. I think, as you say, he's gone down the traditional route of picking up British, Commonwealth, and now European titles. He's more seasoned. He's got a better pedigree. He's fought the better opponents than Ivan Zucco. but I think it might go the distance. I think if Zucco can hold a shot, which we've not seen yet, then it could go late. Callum Simpson, he possesses the power and he's gung ho a little bit, so he's got the potential to go in there and stop Zucco. But if Zucco holds a shot, I think Callum Simpson will compose himself and maybe take this on the cards. I think.
Yeah, but I think that's my prediction, to be fair, as well, mate. I think I'm going to go for a Simpson win. I think it'll be, quite a wide unanimous decision victory. It's all going to be about whether Zuko, like you said, can hold the shots. Or he might turn up, he might be better. We don't quite know. But yeah, my prediction would be a Callum Simpson victory. Yeah, like you said, he can probably put somebody out there, but I think on realistically, it'll probably go the distance, but I think it'll be quite a wide on points for Callum Simpson.
Yep, we look forward to that show as well. And last but no means least, on Friday on Channel 5, so terrestrial TV, we've got the Mercurial Josh Pretty Boy Kelly going in with Flavius Biea, try and say that three times, really fast after a couple of beers. Up in Newcastle, Jamie, Josh Kelly, so good to watch when he's on form, but I don't know whether it's him, his team, his management. For me, there's one too many of these. Get this one out of the way. We're into a big fight, and I get that they've got to build momentum, and I get that. But I just think he last fought in September. He's now back out in June. Could this fight have not happened in between? We've not heard anything of any injuries. If there was injuries in the meantime, I hold my hands up. But yeah, there's just too many of these. With all due respect, again, these unknown away fighters coming in that Josh Kelly looks spectacular against, and then nothing really much happens after that.
Yeah, Kelly is frustrating. Not him personally. I don't know, but his career is frustrating. From where he was projected to go to where he's at now, it's just like, how have we got here?
Yeah.
How have we got? How's he fighting on Channel 5? How's he fighting on Channel 5?
Yeah, and I just think with Josh Kelly, to kind of mention where everyone held him, if you like, or the general regard that he was held in. I remember when they first mentioned Conor Benn as an opponent for Josh Kelly, maybe just before the Avanesian fight. And I remember thinking that was a gross mismatch in favor of Josh Kelly, and that's not to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
Josh
at
Kelly
the time, yeah.
wouldn't beat Conor Benn now because I still think that's a really good fight, but yeah, there was a time when I had him miles ahead of Conor Benn in terms of potential, in terms of career trajectory, and like you say, to see him, and I say languishing on Channel 5, I mean that with all due respect because they get millions of views, but that's because it's on terrestrial TV. He should be in world title picture. I thought he was going to be the golden boy of British boxing. He's got the looks,
Yeah.
he's got the skill. You remember that viral clip of him with those three left hooks and he drops his opponent. He had everything, he had everything that you could possibly want. So I don't know where it's gone wrong. He's 31 now, and I think he needs to go in there on Friday and really do a job and then scream for every world champion or every
Yeah, you've got it.
title contender because 154 pounds, we say about 168 being stacked, 154 pounds is full of killers that are high risk, low reward because they're not the biggest names this side of the pond.
But he's got to do something because he's like you've alluded to, he's 31 now. And funny enough, I messaged you about this. I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning, but one of the things I said to you was he seems to be been around forever, but not. But he's still like it's weird. I don't know what they're doing with him. Like you said, at one point I thought he was the best British prospect that we had. Some of the fights he was magnificent. You're like, wow, he's going to blow people away. I think one of the big things that sort of derailed him massively was the Avanesian fight, and I don't think it was the fact he lost to him. I think what derailed him was the lead up to the fight, the fact that they called it. They wanted to fight him earlier on, and then he sort of backed out of an injury, and his team were like, "Oh, you don't really want this fight." And he sort of went down that route of he was sort of forced into fighting Avanesian, around the next time. And I kind of got the impression the first time they tried to fast track him and probably thought, "Hang on, we've probably jumped the gun a bit too soon here." But they'd already done all the talking about Avanesian at that point, so I think they were forced into having that fight, and he got beat pretty bad. He looked great for 4 rounds. He looked great, but then
There was
then
always
he
a sense
just
of
he, he just
inevitability, wasn't there? There was always a sense of
yeah,
inevitability.
you could see it coming. You could see it coming from round 4 onwards. You could see he's gonna get stopped bad here because he and I don't know whether it's his style isn't made for the pro game. There's so many questions that you could ask about where it's gone wrong with Kelly. And I think only really him and his team would know why he's in this position. It might be something to do with mindset on his side. We don't know, but it's so frustrating because he's so talented and he
Well, I
should be
think
fighting for a world title.
yeah, I think one of the things that would have answered a lot of these questions and would have given him that platform to finally kick on, because the Troy Williamson win was fantastic, and that was looked at as a bit of a 50-50 fight because Troy could kind of replicate the David Evanesian style of pressure, and would he break Kelly? And he didn't. Kelly looked fantastic. But the Liam Smith fight where he fought Ishmael Davis and he won on the cards, and it was a bit tight on the cards. I thought that was a bit unfair to Josh Kelly because he looked great again in that fight. But had he beat Liam Smith, a former world champion, on that card, that would have propelled him
Yeah, yeah, of
in,
course,
into
yeah.
the big fight. So maybe Liam Smith didn't look great against Aaron McKenna. He's shown his age a little bit, so maybe that fight's not going to be revisited. But between 154 and 160, there's plenty of options for Josh Kelly. But just to round it out before we run out of time. Let's get our predictions. We don't know too much, or I certainly don't know too much about Flavius Biea, with all due respect. 24 and 1 record with 12 stoppages. I'll let you go first with this one.
I'd like to say, yeah, Josh Kelly go out there and absolutely annihilate him, take him out inside three, but he's a bit of a showman, and I think without being disrespectful to his opponent, I think he'll absolutely outbox him quite clinically for a good period of the fight, and then we get into the middle rounds. I think he'll stop him in the middle rounds.
Interesting. So I think it'll be, as you say, similar in a way to these other comeback fights that he's had after David Evanesian and then after the Troy Williamson win. Taking out Ishmael Davis because I've got a lot of time for Ishmael Davis. I think he's a good fighter, but some of these foreign opponents that he's been brought in to fight Josh Kelly, and you see the razzmatazz and the show business and the glitz and the glam. I think we're going to see a lot of that on Friday, but ultimately I think he'll win on a wide unanimous points win. But that brings us to the end of the Let's Stop Boxing podcast. It's been a really good chat again for all the viewers and listeners. Make sure you let us know your predictions for the three big main events this weekend. We've also got Keyshawn Davis in action, Jaya Pataya, Junto Nakatani, who some people say is the one gunning for Naoya Inoue in a big all Japanese super fight that could happen down the line. So yeah, no disrespect to all guys, but we just not had the chance to get into it. But wherever you view, consume, listen to this podcast, please leave us a like, a review, a comment, a subscribe. It all gets noticed and we take it all on board. Jamie, thanks for another great podcast and I look forward to next week.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate, and I look forward to the fights and sitting back with you now and discussing how they went on. Did we get our predictions right, or were we massively wrong? We'll soon find out.